Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst Show for today, the 2nd of April, live on YouTube. Already into the 4th month of the year already, April. Would you believe it? It's roughly 8:45 tonight, and it is the Charlie Tolhurst Show. I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to round up all the latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Now, I want to start off the show, as always, with my opening monologue. And this week, I'm going to focus on something very, very different instead of Russia and Ukraine this week. Now, April is now a gloomy month for many people who face a financial crisis. The cost of living crisis is reaching many millions of households across the UK, with prices going up everywhere, whether it's just for your standard essentials like your food, bananas, chips, tin cans of beans, and also just your average daily necessities. Fuel prices going up, electric prices going up, everything is certainly increasing, and the national insurance hike also increasing. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak has announced what I call to be a move very dangerous to our economy. The move will make Britain poorer, in my view, people having to pay more money for things, and also as well, it will hit bereaved families very hard. The truth is this: the cost of living crisis is unlike nothing we have seen since 1973, especially for our petrol crisis as well. The fuel crisis has increased £1.79 now at the pumps rather than £1.59 before then. Zach, what do you make to the cost of living crisis?
Oh, mate. Yeah, it's been quite something. It's been quite something, mate, this cost of living crisis, and it's only just started as well, because, you know, April tax increases, cost of living, I mean, you know, I mean, you're more of a conservative than I am, mate, and we're pretty united on this, aren't we? So, yeah, I mean, national insurance, fuel duty, cost of food and everything like that. Yeah, it's quite, mate, it's unbelievable. It really is. And Sunak's done barely anything about it. So yeah, do you know what, mate? I'm gonna get my tea, and then I'll come up and speak to you again. So you can continue on. I'm gonna get my tea, mate, and then I'll come back.
That's fine. Zach has to go somewhere at the moment, so I will continue opening the show up with you guys tonight. I'm live on YouTube for the Charlie Tolhurst Show. Now, I want to talk to you guys because the reason the cost of living crisis is so important is to do with everything. Now, obviously, the government have unveiled that the increase in several things, as I said, it is a very important thing. Now, one of the people that has spoken out is Martin Lewis, who obviously presents the Martin Lewis Money Show. He said that the government is campaigning for a government intervention to help disabled people and those on lower middle incomes. Now, he spoke to BBC Radio 5 Live. Martin said many people had tightened their belts to the point that they couldn't be tightened anymore, and the room, it therefore is only a political invention. Martin highlighted the plight of disabled people who have to keep all sorts of medical equipment on 24 hours a day. He said, for God's sake, we all need to help them. This is not a party political point. This is a humanitarian point. Now, his comments come as the energy price cap rise comes into effect, meaning millions more will be paying on their energy bills. So energy being a big thing. Obviously, energy bills, as we know, we're spending money on gas as well. And we will cover gas in a minute because, of course, Russia and Ukraine has been major developments in gas prices there regarding the president of Russia. So it's clear to me that there were some issues there as well. And Zach, I have to say though, the government seem to have got themselves into a bit of a manhole cover, really, with this.
Yeah, as I said, mate, it's been a bit of a mess, really, to be honest. Like, we're going to get the government energy strategy, I think, in a few weeks or this week. It's going to be in a few weeks, maybe, I think, Charlie, as well. We're waiting for that, aren't we? Because I think they promised that a while ago back, didn't they? And then they said that it was going to be, I think a few weeks ago, they said it was going to be next week. And then a couple of weeks ago, they said it's going to be, say, next week. And it's been keep delaying. And the thing about oil and gas, Charlie, it's been a lot of debate about this. We know that for a certain segment now, those who are sort of less rushful about, climate change and all that sort of thing, or, relying on our oil and gas industry, there's also a sense that, we could have some sort of return to fracking. They want some sort of return to fracking where, you drill down onshore and get oil and all that gases, everything like that. As well, that's one area as well that's going to be keeping in mind, obviously with Russia and all that sort of thing. But as you said, this is the cost of living at the moment, Charlie. This is going to be sort of factoring into why all this energy stuff like that. Inflation, look, 6.2% to 12 months of February, up from 5.5%. As well, and it could go up to an average of 7-8%, Charlie, by the end of 2022, which is staggering, absolutely staggering. And all this Russia crisis, Ukraine crisis, doesn't help at all in any ways. It's the highest since 1992. This is. It could go higher than that. Energy bills, as I said, gas and electric, is going to be a huge squeeze for the people, Charlie.
Yeah.
If you've been writing about energy bills going through the roof, you should. That's Burn Mail's view. The energy price cap as well, water bills as well, going up to probably around 419. Insurance, national insurance, everything, that's going up this month. Only then the threshold starts to increase in July. So 3 months still of this, Charlie, if you think about it, because the April increase does not include the fact that the contributions don't get done until July, which is a problem for a lot of people, because those are relying on waiting for the threshold rise from 9,000 to 12,500 is going to have to wait anymore.
Yeah.
Council tax increasing as well, Charlie. If 5%, 2% council tax, 3% for social care. There's a handout of £150 rebate, although it's a loan to me, Charlie. I don't know why we call it a loan.
Rebate scheme, loan scheme?
It's a loan, Charlie. They can call it what they want. It's a loan to us because you pay it, you're getting the money and then having to pay it back at some point. That's technically a loan. As well, Charlie. One thing that hasn't been mentioned as well, I think, Charlie, out of this as well, travel rail tickets, air passenger duty, all having going up in ticket prices at 10%. As well, broadband, mobile phones, and TV, Charlie. Something that doesn't get mentioned, I think, as well, that we'd never hear about. The actual prices of broadband, mobile phones, and TV coverage is actually increasing as well. That is going up with inflation as well.
Yeah.
Like BTE PlusNet customers, a 5.4 or 9.3% hike.
Wow.
In their prices, incredible. And the stamps as well. Even the Royal Mail stamps are going up as well, Charlie. A first class stamp is rising to 95p. A second class is 68p as well. So there's something out of national insurance, food prices, inflation as well. Some of this, as I mentioned, plays into the debate about the energy strategy that's coming up as well, Charlie, which still hasn't been announced yet. Whether there will be edges such as getting more oil from the North Sea, whether it's going to rely on Saudi Arabia, or whether we're going to have the return of fracking and onshore wind for a bit. I mean, I personally, my opinion, Charlie, I personally think that I've lost my there we go. I got it back. I personally think, Charlie, that fracking goes too far, in my opinion. Fracking goes too far. I get that we may have to temporarily, for a short time, use more oil from the North Sea and things like that. And I mean, as I'm someone who's passionate about trying to do climate change and make sure we live a greener future, I accept the reality that we may have to have some more oil and gas from the North Sea for a little while or somewhere else rather than relying on Russia. But if we're removing Russian oil or gas, but I don't want fracking to return because it's not a long-term solution, Charlie. It's just not sustainable. And it was some areas, Charlie, you look at on average, sometimes it takes a year to frack and get all the get whatever needed, drill out whatever's needed there, as well. So yeah, fracking I think is too far for me if that does get announced. We see it. There's been some worrying signs about this, Charlie, because we've seen some areas in I think it was Cumbria or something, North, I can't remember where it was, Yorkshire, where where fracking contracts got renewed, which was surprising. I think it was Cordella or something like that. That was got their contracts renewed. So is that an indication of what's to come? Maybe, who knows? But I'm a little bit worried, to be fair, Charlie. I don't want to be doing fracking and everything like that. As well. So yeah, I think more oil and gas temporary for the short term. Yeah, I could accept that. Fracking, no.
I mean, that fracking issue is a big issue in the US with that as well. Fracking, I know that Trump and Biden have had different views on that. One of that was got mentioned in the presidential debates in 2020. But I have to say, I'm going to give this to the listeners here. Please comment down below what you think to the cost of living crisis. Do you think this will impact your energy bills? Do you think this will impact your way of life for 2022? Please comment down below. I'd love to hear your opinion. This is a Charlie Tolhurst show live on YouTube. Moving on now to Russia and Ukraine. I thought I'd cover this second because cost of living crisis is very important. Now, another issue when it comes to cost of living crisis, Russia and Ukraine are continuing to, Russia continuing to invade Ukraine. We'll come on to the Ukrainian airstrike in a minute. I thought I would talk about what the Russian president had to say, Vladimir Putin, about cutting off Europe's energy supplies. If you ask me, what is this barbaric man doing?
Well, there's a straight answer, Charlie. He's uniting the world against him, pretty much. I think some European countries, especially the UK, us as a country, Charlie, will be there'll be bills that'll be ringing their ears and thinking, Russia cutting us off on energy. You know what? That is actually a good thing. I don't think this will have the outcome that Putin expects. So he announced this week that he would expect unfriendly countries, as they call it, Charlie, unfriendly countries, to pay the oil and gas imports and in ruble rather than dollars, basically. So, and those who don't pay in ruble, they might have to set up a ruble account at the moment. I don't think they really care, to be honest, Charlie, these European countries. I don't think they'll care tiddly-tat about this. I think they'll be joyous that they've been cut off from buying oil and gas from Russia, if anything, as well. I mean, hopefully some countries are prepared. Germany, for example, are hopefully prepared for that, because it needs to be the case that, you know, any short-term or retaliations against these countries are going to be obviously felt a little bit, but hopefully not felt as much as the Russians. I mean, it's clear that the Russians have felt it. The fact that they're asking everyone to pay everything in rubles and everything like that, as well, suggests to me that the Russia's feeling the effect, no doubt about it, Charlie. And obviously, Putin, as the crazy man he is, he's making that clear. He's obviously gone off his heads and bonkers and everything like that. So yeah, he's doing his usual self. Whilst the world is united against Putin, most of it, I should point out, not all of it, but most of it, and therefore, you know, this sort of speech ain't going to help him, Charlie. It actually be welcomed if you think about it. So there's the fact that it may not be as retaliatory as you think it is.
Zach, I have to say that his approval ratings have shot up by about 68% for what I heard as well in the news. So I don't know why his approval ratings would have shot up. And I have to say as well, the invasion of Ukraine continues to cause destruction. And one of the things I found very interesting is Russia claimed, and this is what I put on my social media, I claimed that you shouldn't believe a word the Russians say, because They say they're going to retreat soldiers from Kiev, for example, or Kiev, people call it. But then I feel like they're going to regroup and then maybe attack again. And I have to say, I feel like they're kind of lying.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Charlie, if they're lying in this poll. Because it's the fact is that Putin's rating's gone up. So what makes you suspicious, really, Charlie? I don't think it reflects reality, really. I bet they've probably interviewed a couple of thousand of pro-Putin supporters and everything like that. And they've just, taken that as a fact and everything. And, and put in a poll, inflate it in all sorts of ways. It smacks me the fact, his rating's gone up by 60% or something like that. It smacks to me as something fishy in that. I don't think that Putin's rating's gone up. I bet it's gone properly down, if you know lead or not. They probably rigged the polls in some way. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm Donald Trump or anything, because I'm not. But generally, in a country like Russia, where there's elections and polls that are not very democratic compared to the ones that you get in the US and here as well, it doesn't sound that believable, Charlie. I think you might agree with me that it smells a bit odd, a bit pooey. It smells a bit off.
Yeah, well, I'm going to play for you this video right now that the BBC have sent out. And this is about who is Vladimir Putin. As some of the listeners might not know, Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia. And this video explains just exactly who the leader of Russia is and how his background used to be during his time in the KGB and also his time as president. Have a listen to this.
Vladimir Putin grew up in the aftermath of the Second World War. In 1945, the US, the UK and the Soviet Union met to shape the new world. 7 years on, he was born in what was then Leningrad and is now St. Petersburg. By the 70s, Putin had studied law and then joined the Russian Secret Service, the KGB. At this time, the Soviet Union's influence reached across the communist nations of Eastern Europe. And in the 80s, Putin was posted to Dresden in East Germany. From there, he witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of communism. This was a visceral example of people power. To Putin, though, the demise of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century. And while that demise was negotiated, Putin was heading home to find a place for himself in the new Russia. Russia's president in the 90s, Boris Yeltsin, would help him do that. He made Putin head of the security services. Then Putin was elected prime minister. Then, in 1999, Yeltsin resigned. Putin was president. And his way of operating was clear from the start.
Tightening the grip over media was one of the first things that he did. And also the lack of genuine opposition, because his critics either have been in exile or dead or facing prosecution.
Putin's focus on his own power and wealth was relentless. By 2008, when his 2 terms were up, Dmitry Medvedev replaced him as president, but Putin became prime minister and everyone knew who was in charge. By 2012, he was back as president again. And Putin's indifference to democracy is matched by his view of sovereignty. In 2008, Russia invaded Georgia to support separatists. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. It supported separatists in eastern Ukraine. And in 2018, a former Russian Secret Service operative was poisoned in Salisbury. The UK says Russian intelligence was responsible. To Putin, the rules are for him to make. He said as much himself.
I hope no one will cross Russia's red line, but in each case, we are the ones who will decide where the red line is.
And Russia's right to decide roots back to Putin's view of what he's seen in his lifetime. In 2015, he addressed the UN and said, instead of the triumph of democracy and progress, we got violence, poverty, and social disaster. Nobody cares a bit about human rights. Putin's contempt was directed at Western democracy. We've seen, though, how little he cares for democracy in Russia and Ukraine. Despite this, years earlier, the West talked of trusting it.
I'll answer the question. I looked the man in the eye. I found it to be very straightforward. I was able to get a sense of his soul.
We're getting a sense of it too this week, as we did a few years ago when Putin spoke of his childhood, telling us, 50 years ago, the Leningrad street taught me a rule. If a fight is inevitable, you have to throw the first punch. There was nothing inevitable about this week, but Ukraine has felt that first punch. A punch Putin justifies in his country's interests, but which very much serve his. And as we've watched the violence, I think back to that criticism of the West at the UN in 2015. Putin said, "I'm urged to ask those who created this situation, do you at least realize now what you've done?" The world is now asking the same of him, and everything about Putin's life suggests, yes, he does realize what he's done.
Thank you there to Ross Atkins from the BBC for that report there on the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Me and Zach are now going to quickly talk about the Russian president's legacy, should I say, as a leader and also as prime minister. And Zach, what really made Putin on the headlines was when he invaded Georgia. He was trying to focus a lot on capturing countries and turning them sort of into Russian-backed separatist regions.
Yeah, pretty much, Charlie. As I said to you a few weeks ago, Putin's vision is basically an old-style Soviet Union vision, really, where, if you think about it, he views the world, the world as in the old days. So, the likes of Poland, Georgia, you know, some parts of Germany, if you think about it, Finland. He views them as part of still the Soviet Union, Charlie. So that's all he's been envisioned. Not obviously been obviously at first. He's sort of played a very clever long game in this, and I don't mean that in a good way. Obviously, I mean that in a bad way. But you know, the trouble is with Charlie is that most European and Western countries still relied on him after he did these things. You know, the US met him, as you know, with George W. Bush early on. And, you know, he obviously had to act an appeal to the world, really, at first, Charlie. You know, he's obviously a tough guy. You know, he meant what he meant. He had values. And he obviously wanted to be mainstream and appealed to, you know, to literally work with the world if needed to be. But, and even still on, Charlie, if you think about it, the invasion in Georgia in 2008, where he decided to basically invade a country, then all he got for the rest of the world was a slap on the wrist. And that was when his true intentions started to go from there. And, you know, in 2014, axed Crimea, and obviously axed certain areas of the Donbass region to put them to separatist control. There was a lot of fury and outroar then. They got kicked out of the G20 for that. I mean, what was known as the G8, sorry, at the time. My apologies. And then it became the G7. So there was 8 countries. Obviously, Russia was in it, and they finally took some action. They kicked them out of the G8 at the time, and they came into the G7. But you know, they still dealt with Russia. They still thought we could have a cozy relationship, everything like that. And many countries, Germany, most of the European Union, relied on him for all the oil and gas and many production that they wanted to work together with. And now it took until 2022 when Vladimir Putin has done the thing that he does best and invade countries that he doesn't like. Took an invasion for the world to start actually paying attention and giving a warming and put up the resistance that, you know, that they really needed. And so Vladimir Putin has done a long game here. Maybe we've all been too blind to see what he's done, but he has turned from a pretty rural, you know, a mainstream politician into some worldview dictator. And that's how his transformation has always been. And it's been weird to have a dictator like this where he holds elections and referendums, but there's only one option. It's all rigged one way, as I said before, Charlie. It's all in his own interests and what he thinks is in that country's interest. But outside of his inner circle and all his oligarchs and rich people, it's not really in that. The rest of the world don't really see it how he sees it.
Yeah. He sees himself as a guy who can destroy a government headquarters building in Mykolaiv with a missile. And
pretty much.
Yeah. Basically, thank goodness the one of the Ukrainian and Mayor's there wasn't killed, Vitaly Kim, who escaped the wreckage in Mykolaiv. But yeah, they just keep continuing to bombard and cause destruction in Ukraine. Now, Ukraine did launch a missile attack just near the Russian, near the Ukrainian border in Russia. First one on Russian territory. I think a place in Domilgrad or something where this took place. I think it was on an oil depot. What did you make of this?
Yeah, so I think it was some sort of the Ukrainians have sort of been shy on this. They've not confirmed or denied this, but it appears from what journalists reporting that it is a Ukrainian attack on an oil depot. I mean, to be fair, Charlie, this is a retaliation probably. The fact is that Ukraine have waited so long now for to go for an attack on a Russian land. It's interesting. Obviously, this is a retaliatory measure, and I'm surprised it took this long, to be fair, to them to retaliate. Maybe they didn't want to, but maybe they found a target where, you know, there was something that was fueling what Russia were doing. And I obviously mean that literally, because we're talking about oil here, and I'm talking about fuel in the same sentence. That you know, this may well be. It may this oil storage may be using as an area to prop up Putin's efforts and military and all that sort of thing, and all the rockets that they use. So it could be that, you know, this is a key area that the Ukrainians still need to attack, and they've got the resources to do it. I'm sure they have, Charlie. They could go further if they really wanted to. I mean, we've seen the resilience of the Ukrainian army and their forces anyway. And they could put up defense like what we've seen the last couple of weeks, Charlie, or the month. Then they can go and attack Moscow if they really wanted to. I mean, I don't want it to get to that point. I mean, I'm not a fan of attacking other people's countries, but they've been attacked. So why don't, you know, they might as well retaliate. Belgrove, there you go. Belgrove, yeah. That was the place. But obviously there was attacks nearby, presumably. And, you know, they've decided that it's now time to hit something that the Russians use to, you know, fuel their war as a strategic thing. So it's interesting, this one. Will Russia retaliate? I don't know, Charlie. I don't know.
Hashtag World War III, if that was my view. If you start attacking another country, it gets to a point where you're basically going to be the one who's attacking and all that kind of stuff. It gets to a point where basically you just have to accept that a country goes around and attacks another country. It doesn't get to a point where you just end up thinking to yourself, is that even the right thing to do? Like, I'm sorry, we can't have a war. I don't want a war. But the thing is, Russia needs to be retaliated. No matter what happens, we've got to attack. I don't hope World War III never happens. I mean, Zach, the response from NATO for World War III, if this gets into an armed conflict, I think would be unprecedented for the world, quite frankly, and would lead to the annihilation of all of us.
I mean, yeah, it would be unprecedented. I don't want World War III to happen, though. That's the thing, Charlie. I can't see it happening at the moment, and I don't think it's going to be well a long way off, unless North Korea get on the act, obviously. You know, we've seen news, obviously, of what they've been doing recently.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I can't see it anytime soon, Charlie. I just hope it doesn't happen. I know they'll probably keep hitting their targets, hitting each other probably for a while, Charlie. But I can't really see World War III happening really anytime soon. I'll give you the good news on that side. And that's optimistic. Yeah. But I honestly, in a serious note, I can't see it happening anytime soon. I know it's a war between two countries at the moment, but it doesn't. No one's wanting to go, apart from Belarus, potentially. Nobody wants to seem to start off anything yet, even if North Korea decides to do all their missile tests and everything like that. And no one's really reacted. They're just letting them get on with it, really, to be fair. We can aid whatever we need to, obviously, to countries, but I think no other country is directly going to get involved. and send their troops or their helicopters or anything like that into Ukraine and Russia at the moment, Charlie.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. I'd be careful what Mr. Joe Biden had to say about sending your troops into Poland. I think you want to be a bit careful with wording that, my friend, because obviously the Ukrainians and the Russians are fighting each other, and the last thing we want to do is send your NATO troops in, and then there'll be a war. So anyway, that's that. Obviously, please comment down below what you make of that as well. I think that's very important. What do you make of this? Please comment down below. Now, moving on to the sport briefing now. A little bit of a sport briefing today. I want to start, though, with the big announcement this week. Formula One racing in Las Vegas in 2023. Before we do that, though, a little recap of last week's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in Jeddah, won by Max Verstappen of Red Bull. And I have to say, Zach, this race at the end got pretty entertaining.
Oh, Charlie, didn't it? Just 2 races in a row. It's entertaining, brilliant racing, Charlie. I mean, it's a great start to the season, Charlie. Even if it doesn't involve the British drivers, I have to say. Lewis Hamilton nowhere near the pack, obviously, starting from the back, getting eliminated in Q1 for the first time since 2017.
Brazil 2017, yeah.
Brazil 2017. So he started for 16th, 15th actually, because there was a few grid penalties in there, and only finished 10th because of the strategy went wrong by Mercedes there as well. But Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, the top 2, Max Verstappen winning the race after incredible last lap battles between the 2 of them. It's incredible, Charlie. Absolutely, it was fair racing, even if it did get a little bit twitchy at one point where they decided to break on the straight to get the safety DRS zone up for them. But it did get twitchy in that part. But the racing itself, Charlie, was very, very clean and entertaining. It was brilliant. This is the sort of battle, Charlie, that I want to see all season long. Verstappen, Leclerc, the fans are loving it, and rightly so, because it's providing us a good racing, good entertainment. The cars can follow Charlie, which is one of the main things that we've seen with these new rules of cars. And it's providing good racing, Charlie. It really had. The whole 50 lap was brilliant. It was fun. It's what we want to see. It's good to see that Ferrari have got their act together, 2nd and 3rd this week. Even if they didn't win the race, they've definitely got their act together this year with the car, Charlie, no doubt about it. Red Bull have kept on top of the car, no doubt. Mercedes is still behind a little bit as well, as you could tell, with Hamilton 10th, Russell 5th. But wow, what a race, Charlie, no doubt about it. There's Perez in 4th as well. Hit the pole, unfortunately got screwed over in the virtual safety car, Charlie, came out, and the safety car as well. The strategy got screwed by him. Ocon was impressive 6th as well. Shame for about his teammate Fernando Alonso had a mechanical issue with the car as well. Kevin Magnussen 9th, Pierre Gasly 8th. Good one for Gasly. Norris 7th. McLaren, better weekend, Charlie. No doubt, a better weekend for McLaren in terms of qualifying and the race pace as well.
Unless your name's Daniel Ricciardo.
Unless your name's Daniel Ricciardo, who's, another weekend of the struggles, unfortunately, for him as well. Guan Yu Zhou, 11th, unlucky for Guan Yu Zhou because he got hit with a penalty for gaining the track and leaving an advantage. And then got another penalty on top of that for not actually serving the full penalty. But did recover well to finish 11th. Hulkenberg was 12th. That is his last race now, Charlie, because Sebastian Vettel's back in the seat for Australia. And if we go down, Lance Stroll 13th. Alex Albon with a crash with Guan Yu Zhou. Unfortunately, that meant that Albon DNF'd on the last couple of laps of the race. He's got a 3-place grid penalty for next race as well, Charlie. If I'm correct in saying that.
Was that Alex Albon? Yeah.
Yeah, Alex Albon. Valtteri Bottas, also problems with him as well. 15th. Alonso 16th. Ricciardo also problems as well. Lots of technical problems with that. Nicholas Tiffy, a crash as well in 18th. Snowden didn't start the race because he had a technical issue. And also Mick Schumacher as well, who had that horrific accident in qualifying and came out okay. Was declared unfit to race, but is okay and will be presumably back for Australia as well, Charlie.
Yeah, I thought I'd go through the top 10 with you guys just very quickly. So Max Verstappen winning the race there. Charles Leclerc second for Ferrari. Carlos Sainz third for Ferrari. Sergio Perez fourth for Red Bull. George Russell fifth for Mercedes. Esteban Ocon holds off a driver for the second year in a row. Bottas in 2021. It was Lando Norris for seventh P7 there. Pierre Gasly eighth for AlphaTauri. Ninth, Kevin Magnussen. A very decent result for him for Haas. And Lewis Hamilton, who started 15th on the grid, finishing in the final points pan position in 10th place. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, well, Charles Leclerc currently leads that overall for 45 points. Second is Max Verstappen on third. Third is Max Verstappen on 25. Sainz currently in second place on 33 points. There is the championship standings for you there. The Drivers' Championship standings as we see. And of course, the Constructors' Championship is Ferrari leading that 78 points. Mercedes are actually in second place, but that's only because George Russell has actually been scoring good results. Obviously, that Mercedes third and fourth place in Bahrain has helped them finish leads in second, and Red Bull there with that strong result in Baku, in Jeddah, In third place, Alpine are fourth on 16, and Haas with Kevin Magnussen's points finishing here are fifth. Next race, next weekend in Melbourne, Australia. First time since 2019 we're racing there as well. Moving on now to the Cup Series and NASCAR racing taking place at COTA. Now, I haven't even watched any of the NASCAR highlights yet, so I need to definitely catch up with the highlights for NASCAR. But in terms of what happened last week, well, I can tell you, if you watched the Cup Series race in NASCAR, probably going to want to know exactly what happened because there was plenty of action for NASCAR Cup Series. Obviously, we saw a shock win for Chase Briscoe the other week. And it was the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix. Ross Chastain winning the race.
Chastain, yes.
Can't believe it. He finishes second 1 week and then goes on and wins at Texas, in Austin. Zach, what did you make of this race?
Alex Bowman as well on the final laps. Wasn't far behind Charlie. Just didn't catch him at the end of the day. He wasn't far behind Alex Bowman as well in second place. But Ross Chastain, obviously, I when I was a few years ago, that was a name that was used to me in the Truck Series, Charlie. Now obviously in the Cup Series, and he's winning races. Great job for him as well in the one car. Alex Bowman was second. Christopher Bell was third in the 20. Chase Elliott was fourth. Tyler Reddick in fifth position. Ryan Blaney sixth. Truex was seventh. Austin Cindric eighth. Eric Jones ninth. And Austin Dillon was in 10th, Charlie, as well. So that it was a good race. I didn't see all of it, but from the bits I saw, it was pretty decent, Charlie, as well. They're racing at Richmond this weekend, Charlie, as well. The race is ongoing at the moment in the Xfinity race at the moment because the Go Bolden 250 is currently on. Ty Gibbs is currently leading that, Charlie, ahead of Joe Nemechek. Have they actually finished as well, Charlie?
I think they have actually just finished. Today at 6:30, I think the race has actually just concluded.
Yeah,
Ty
Gibbs is the winner by the looks of it, Charlie. As well, it looks like they have finished, Charlie. Ty Gibbs has won on a last lap pass from what I'm reading, just ahead of Joe Nemechek. I think it's Joe Nemechek. It might be John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek. Apologies, Charlie. Ahead of John Hunter Nemechek in second. Sam Mayer was third. AJ Allmendinger was fourth. Riley Herbst was fifth, Charlie, in that race. That's just finished, by the way. Daniel Hemrick sixth. Josh Berry seventh as well. Brandon Brown eighth as well. Ryan Siege ninth. And Parker Retzlaff in 10th, Charlie. So that was the top 10. Tomorrow, Charlie, is, I believe, the Cup Series, the Blue Emi Max and Payne. Oh, no, yes.
Toyota Owners 400.
400, sorry, that's my bad. That's next week where they're going to go to Martinsville. Yeah, that will be a night race, by the way, Charlie, next week on the Sunday. So I'll have to miss that one, unfortunately. I'll have to catch up the highlights on that one as well. But tomorrow's starting grid, Charlie, Ryan Blaney's on the pole position ahead of William Byron, Kyle Busch, Chase Briscoe in 4th, Eric Jones in 5th, Truex in 6th, Kevin Harvick is starting 7th, Ross Chastain last week's win is 8th, Christopher Bell is 9th, and Eric
Almirola getting 10th, yeah.
In 10th, Charlie. There has been a couple of ejections, Charlie, ahead of the weekend, Charlie, in pre-qualifying inspection, Charlie, as well. The car's crew chiefs of Austin Dillon, AJ Allmendinger, Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, Ricky Stenhouse, Charlie, have had their crew chiefs ejected for the pit weekend and lost their pit selection for the Sunday, Charlie. And also Justin Haley in 44 failed 3 times as well, inspection as well. They weren't permitted to qualify, and they're going to have to serve a pass-through penalty of taking the green flag, Charlie. So Haley and Biffle failed their inspections as well, and they will be taking penalties at the start of the race as well, Charlie. The Haley's team and the Biffle's team as well, their crew chief got ejected as well. Wallace is out, his crew chief. It's part of a 4-week suspension as a result of a loose wheel, Charlie. There was a loose wheel that they managed to escape whilst they was pitting last week, Charlie. You're not allowed that, obviously, under the regulations, that to happen. That's obviously a safety issue. So Bubba Wallace, Bubba Wallace's team is without their true crew chief for 4 weeks and 2 crew members as well, Charlie. So there's just a bit of news on the penalty perspective there. And that will be crucial, obviously, tomorrow, Charlie, to determining what's going to happen in the race. Because, Haley and Biffle not being able to qualify and starting in the back and having to serve a path through is going to be really hurtful for their races, Charlie, no doubt, for tomorrow.
Oh, it will be, Zach. I can tell you that. They're not going to enjoy that. Bubba Wallace is in trouble. That the number 23 there, 23 XR Racing without his crew chief. I mean, that's going to be a bit of a problem communicating. But yeah, it could be grid penalties coming for these drivers. We just have to wait and see in the sport. So yeah, all I can say is that is NASCAR for you. The Camping World Truck Series will be back next week. There is no Camping World Truck Series race this week. And that's at Martinsville. Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500 is the NASCAR race at Martinsville. I just want to also do a quick update as well whilst we're here. Obviously, Formula One racing in Las Vegas 2023. Zach, are you excited for this?
That's going to be quite the spectacle, Charlie, no doubt about it. Las Vegas, actually the money resort of America, Charlie, no doubt about it. I've seen the circuit, Charlie. It's going to be some very interesting. And I watched a little prototype of the circuit, Charlie, as well. It's like Baku, Charlie. It really is. It's like Baku. It's like Azerbaijan. It's a bit like Saudi Arabia. It feels like we're gonna have Saudi Arabia version 2, Charlie, because there's a 1.2 mile front stretch as well. There's the start finish line is going to be fast. They're going to be racing on the strip as well. They're passing Caesar's Palace, and it's going to be under the lights, Charlie, at 10 p.m. local time, which means we'll be at 6 a.m. local time for us, Charlie, in 2023. And bizarrely as well, Charlie, it's going to be on a Saturday, Las Vegas time, rather than the traditional Sunday race, Charlie, presumably to cater for the audiences that require, Charlie. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Charlie. Las Vegas, whatever happens in Vegas, probably stays in Vegas. Although no doubt, Barley, it probably won't. Whatever happens, probably just gets spread to the whole world anyway, Charlie. So but yes, a third race in America, Charlie. Yeah, that's good. I would like to see a South Africa race at some point, because I know that region's sort of been overlooked and it's starting to come back a little bit. So it'd be good to see them go to South Africa rather than doing another US race. But Las Vegas, I think it'll be a good sight to watch, Charlie, no doubt about it.
The South Africa race could potentially be held at Kyalami. I know that circuit did host that race before, back in the 80s, and then in the 90s they rebuilt the circuit to host it. So I know that Kyalami has hosted F1 races before. Las Vegas, the last time they raced in Las Vegas was in 1982, and that was on the Caesars Palace car park circuit, which I think Nelson Piquet, I'm not sure, actually, I might be completely wrong here, but I think Nelson Piquet won the Drivers' Championship there one year, I
Yeah,
think. So it is a track that's full of attrition, full of, let me just say, full of, basically used to be racing on a car park in Caesar's Palace. They're now racing on the strip. That's going to be pretty amazing. So Formula One racing in Las Vegas, 2023, one of the last races of the year by looks of it. I can't wait for that. Now, let's talk Charlie's good news now. Now, The Apprentice has finished, but that doesn't mean we're going to talk about good news, because I want to move on to talk about Easter. It's the Easter holidays now from next week, 2 weeks off for schools and colleges across England, which means, what do you want to do over the Easter holidays? That is what we're going to be talking about. So let's have a look what is going to be happening. So Easter in April 2022, there are plenty of things to do in Essex, and I can tell you exactly what is going to be on come Easter. So I thought I'd mention a few of these. From the 2nd to the 18th of April, the Easter Spectacular at the Audley End Miniature Railway in Saffron Weldon. Now, Audley End Miniature Railway in Saffron Weldon reopens this month with its Easter Spectacular. From April 2nd to the 18th, it will host a variety of fun activities. The adventure will begin in its miniature train, which will take a deep ride around the Enchanted Woods to visit the Easter Bunny and his furry friends. On the route, you'll find magical woods. Your next stop will be the Easter Trail. Here you can wander through the various pathways to spot springtime animals, nests and eggs. However, the fun doesn't end there. Kids can visit the play area and nature corner whilst their parents tuck into delicious refreshments. 2nd to the 18th of April. On that one, tickets £17.50 for adults and £8.50 for children under 92 centimetres. First day of entry is at 9:20, last entry is at 3:20. Now, the only meet is an Essex festival with an array of Volkswagen cars, campers, buggies and wacky custom builds to admire. Probably some Type 2 transporters as well, if you ask me. There'll be an array of music, refreshments, independent stalls, and also the brand new children's territory as well. And that's from April 29th to 2nd of May, Friday 10 a.m. to Monday 12 p.m. That is, of course, just after the Easter holidays are over. From April the 1st to the 30th, Essex-wide, the Essex Wildlife Trust will run various Easter events. There's also an Easter pantomime in Harlow. In Sylvia Paul Textile Art Exhibition will be in Malden. That is the 14th to 3rd of April 14th to 3rd of May. A painter and textile artist of more than 40 years of experience, Sylvia Paul is showcasing her beautiful textile art in Malden, where she's attended Plume Academy School in the 1970s. Her innovative artworks are either hand or machine stitched and created remembrance of the Sudbury silk factories or Colimono silk there as well. 14th of April, May the 3rd. Address is Maladune Heritage Centre. That is Maladune Heritage Centre, Malden, CM9 4PZ. That's CM9 4PZ as well. Also, a bit more local to myself, Southend-on-Sea are having a 90s dance party for adults in East starts on April the 15th, hosting many 90s acts, including the Vengham Boys, S Club, and 911, not the Porsche 911, 911. There's also a 90s dance arena, much more. Bring on nostalgia. 15th of April, Friday the 15th of April, 2 till 11:30. Tickets, £16.75. It's Garran Park, Eastern Avenue, Southend. Garran Park, Eastern Avenue, Southend, SS2 4FA. Summertime Live also takes place in Basildon on the 29th of April at Gloucester Park in Basildon. It aims to capture the Ibiza ambience with its 32-piece orchestra will play some of the biggest dance anthems in the last 30 years. Expect a variety of DJs, fashion and makeup stalls, ambience of bars, street and food vendors, and much more. This event is strictly for over 18s. Tickets on sale for around £38.50. So there's some of the things you can do this month over the Easter holidays throughout April. So yeah, I hope you found this good news segment very interesting. We'll be back again next week, rounding up more good news stories. Zach, what did you make to this week's good news segment?
Oh, some interesting stuff going on here, Charlie. Obviously, this year it's all possible because we're no longer in COVID restrictions anymore, Charlie. So I have to say, make the most of them if you want to go to some of these events, because they look pretty interesting as well. One of them's obviously running next door to me, so yeah, they all look very interesting nonetheless, Charlie.
Yeah, certainly that is Malden, technically. So I'm all the way in Basildon. So we're all. This is why we have the world of the internet here around us. So
obviously.
thank you goodness. We'll try and hopefully very soon, guys. We will try and get a studio. I'm planning on that. Hopefully in the coming months ahead, that we can do the show properly live from somewhere rather than on the internet. It'd be amazing. But all I can say, guys, is that's work in progress.
When I get there, obviously, when I'm hopefully in a position to do it, I hopefully can one day. But this is working as well as it is so far, Charlie, and I'm enjoying it like this. Even if it's not the most convenient, but I will be ready when I can be. I know it's going to be slow for me, but I like doing this like this so far. It would be great to do it in person one day. Obviously, probably wouldn't be every week, but it'll probably be now and then. But yeah, this is good so far. I'm enjoying it like this.
Yeah,
Power of the internet.
Good. Yeah, that's fine. Well, let's just say work in progress. One day in the future, we'll do that. But I hope that. But obviously, this is what we're going to do at the moment, and we're still going to bring you great coverage now because it's time for a look at the national newspapers. We're going to have papers to cover for tomorrow as well. God, it's probably past 9:30 now, so papers are coming in. Let's get on with it, guys, and talk about some of our newspaper headlines. By the way, a mention to the Oscars comes later on in the Great British Star and Red Devil as well. Let's get into the newspapers today. Now, The Guardian goes with the COVID-centric headline. COVID hits an all-time high in the UK as the Easter holidays begin. That comes as the government ends free testing for all. Financial Times goes for, another COVID headline. Offices emptying fast as COVID infection rates reach all-time high. Also, P&O ferries face criminal probe and potential sackings, large fine for crew sackings. The Times goes for the UK missile shoots down first Russian helicopter. The Daily Mail goes for a 750,000 from fraudster was sent to fund Beatrice's wedding. That news story has links to former member of the royal family, Prince Andrew. The Daily Telegraph goes with the headline, thousands of turbines to treble onshore wind power. And in this exclusive there, Putin, the cancer doctor, and the baths of the blood. Ugh. Daily Express goes with Andrew wants to be at Queen's side for Jubilee. The Daily Star goes with, I think, a fantastic headline here. Dim and dimmer. Wow, great headline here. Mega rich energy boss tells customers to save cash by not using lessee. Or minister earning 115,000 moans of the cost of living crisis as well. Where the hell do we find these numbskulls?
Typical headline from the Daily Star.
And the final one before we move on to tomorrow's papers in review. The Sun goes, it's Iranian men, hallelujah. World Cup draw announced for 2022 as well. Is that what do you make to the latest headlines?
A bit more of a mix this week. Let's start with The Guardian, actually. They're focusing on COVID. They're talking about the ONS data, which shows that more people have had COVID than ever, really, to be fair, Charlie, across the UK. Obviously, it's not being reported as such because COVID is sort of not the lethal threat as it was before, but it's still prominent, Charlie, about it. This time, the Easter holidays are now coming up. We may well get less of this now, Charlie, because the Easter holidays are now here. There's students not mixing in schools and everything, colleges. So it may well be that it could calm down a little bit now. And there's signs that there could be a little bit of decline based on last week's figures as well, Charlie. Not from the ONS, but the actual statistics from the COVID, the UK COVID dashboard as well, rather than the ONS statistics. So it may well be reflecting that next week potentially, but who knows? But that's what it says at the moment. It's at an all-time high as the Easter holiday has been reflecting the ONS data. And as you know, Charlie, it's having an effect as well on the offices, as the FT weekend says as well, Charlie. It means that obviously office emptying fast. A lot of people are still not going to work, Charlie, because of COVID. They are opting to I know it's optional now, self-isolation, but nevertheless, Charlie, there are still many businesses and offices that are still asking their employees not to come in if they have COVID, and understandably so, because the reason why we've had such a massive COVID increase, by the way, is because of the BA2 Omicron variant, not the original Omicron. It's another version of Omicron that's a little bit more strain, a different strain that's sort of a more infectious compared to normal Omicron as well. Almost 5 million cases last week, Charlie, which, goodness me, that's a lot. And around about probably just over 1,000 deaths as well, based on the ONS data as well. The P&O ferries, again, that's kicking up as well, Charlie, because their boss admitted to breaking the law in a select committee hearing this week, Charlie. Incredible stuff. The boss of P&O admitted to breaking laws. They're now in a serious bout of trouble, Charlie, because there's now criminal proceedings being launched against them. And I'm interested to see what sort of fines they've come out will get, Charlie, out of this. I mean, there'll be plenty of penalties out of this, no doubt about it, Charlie, as well, I think, out of this, because it's quite extraordinary. The Times goes from the fact that we obviously talked about that missile, that obviously helicopter coming down, Charlie, as well. Star Street was what we provided Ukrainians as well. We saw some footage going around, Charlie, of a Russian helicopter being shot down by missiles. That was a UK provided missile, Charlie, that shot a Russian helicopter down. And the Times are celebrating and leading with that. No, unsurprisingly, there's been a lot of them shot down, Charlie. Russians have basically left Kyiv. The Ukrainians now took over Kyiv again. Kherson has been going back into the Ukrainian control. The Ukrainians are moving towards Donbass now again, Charlie, once again. Are they going to stay there? Probably not. They're going to probably recouple, refocus, arrange themselves, and then go for another phase, Charlie, of shooting down everything again and bombing everything in its path, potentially as well. That's the expectation. But the counter defense is certainly working. They may have gone for something, interestingly, about Beatrice wedding, and I don't know what this is about fully. Here we go. Prince Andrew's reportedly in a legal riddle over a £750,000 payment from a Turkish millionaire, Charlie. That is what it's about, Charlie. It's a Turkish millionaire that has been paying potentially Prince Andrew, Charlie, to fund Beatrice's wedding, Charlie, as well. So yeah, interesting that Prince Andrew's outsourcing, Charlie, as well. So it appears that his private secretary's been doing a lot of dealings with interesting people, nevertheless, Charlie. Thousands of turbines to treble onshore wind power, Charlie. This is a reference to the possible energy strategy, Charlie, as well. Interestingly enough, Charlie, that's a reference to that. And the Prime Minister is potentially going to move to onshore wind strategy, Charlie, which has sort of been given a resistance by him because the Prime Minister prefers sort of offshore wind power rather than onshore. And it looks like he's going to build turbines as part to get into wind power as well, Charlie, as part of the energy strategy. So that's the plan. And it looks like it's going to be done between 2030 and 2035, Charlie, and increasing the gigawatts to 445 gigawatts, Charlie. They're currently 15 gigawatts. The Prime Minister's plans to put 45 gigawatts wind turbines on onshore land here in the UK as well, Charlie, as part of the energy strategy as well. Fracking remains the key question. Will that happen, Charlie? We don't know yet as well. The Daily Express goes for Andrew wants to be at Queen's side for Jubilee. This is obviously, as you know, it's Queen's Platinum Jubilee this year, Charlie. There'll be a range of events to celebrate the Queen's anniversary in the throne. And Prince Andrew wants to be at the Queen's side. I'm not sure, Charlie, if the public really want that to be the case. I don't think they'll like the sight of him being there. Why does the Andrew want to be so close to the Queen, I wonder? Yeah, it makes me think, is it because he's in a little bit of legal trouble? Has the FBI want a little bit of information for him? Do they want to get him arrested? Very interesting, Charlie. I think there's a bit more to this than meet the eye about this. The Daily Star goes for their very comic front page of Dim and Dimmer. This is they're talking about energy bosses, Charlie, and I think looks like one of the ministers. Is that Kit Malthouse?
Yes, it is Kit Malthouse.
Like
Yeah,
Kit Malthouse, doesn't it? This is talking about, Charlie, the fact that energy bosses are making loads of profits and cash, and some of them have actually been going as far as lecture customers to save cash by not losing lessee, whilst this lot earn 115,000 a year. This guy on the left probably earning thousands of pounds in profits and pay, whilst he gets in his luxurious, whatever, Charlie, cash and everything. And they're telling us to, trim down whilst they're getting all the money, Charlie. And the minister, Kit Malthouse, is complaining about his £115,000 salary, and he's making his life tricky. Well, if he's complaining about £115,000 a year, Charlie, then goodness me, I don't know. And by the way, Charlie, can I point out the hypocrisy, by the way, of Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, who have proven how out of touch they are by their little wealth, Charlie. Yesterday, it was revealed by The Sun that Boris Johnson has been holding boozy wine and drinks, Charlie, for donors. Yes, posh, rich donors to donate to the Conservative Party. Whilst we're on our buggers suffering off, Charlie, whilst we're all feeling the effects of the cost of living crisis, Boris Johnson is getting away with alcohol, wine, and a lot of cash as well with rich donors. What posh luxury out of touch he is. And Rishi Sunak, Charlie, as well, has gone on holiday, but not in UK, to his California rich mansion where his billionaire wife probably gets it from. Oh, you couldn't make it up, Charlie. Two rich old Eton men have been living their best life whilst we poor old buggers suffer. I can't believe it, Charlie. It's absolutely unbelievable. That just shows out of touch loonies they are. The Sun leads on a different matter, Charlie. They're going for the World Cup. We had the World Cup draw yesterday, Charlie. I watched it live. I think we've got a very good draw, apart from the fact we could have Scotland and Wales and Ukraine as the fourth competitor, potentially. But the rest of it seems good. Iran, the terrorists, basically, they're nuclear terrorists we've got in there. And we've also got the Americans as well, Charlie. It sounds like an easy opponent. Although I remind myself to the time of 2010 when Rob Green was on goalkeeper duty.
Oh, I saw that. Yes, he let the goal ball in, didn't he?
He had a goal save to forget. Literally, Charlie. It went through his legs. And we drew 1-1 with the Americans at the time. It was a terribly crap result. But we faced them again 12 years on, Charlie. It should be easy, to be fair. Iran versus USA is going to be very interesting because of the political implications of that. I can't, I mean, you can make all the jokes you want about that because that's going to be a very interesting draw, nevertheless, Charlie. But there's Spain and I think Germany during the same pot as well, Charlie, if I remember as well, which is going to be a very interesting result as well. Right, I believe, nevertheless, doing that, Charlie, there's a few tomorrow's front pages released as well, Charlie. Let me see how many.
We have the papers up for you guys. I think 3 papers, but what I've heard, there might be more coming through now.
Yes, the Express release they're going on the COVID loan payments, Charlie. It appears, Charlie, they've talked to a former minister, Lord Agnew, who resigned as part of the COVID fraud scandal, Charlie. where there was £12 billion of fraud that the government just writ off in a dash, Charlie, rather than claiming it back. And it appears there's a £37 billion spare draw, Charlie, as well, that's got lost to fraudsters as well, Charlie. He's calling for the government to seize the money back so that they can use it to spend on to ease the cost of living, Charlie. And I think that would be a good idea to me here, Charlie, because how could you write £12 billion of fraud and 37 lost overall? How could you honestly do that? It's a scandal, Charlie. It really is. The Daily Star goes for focus on Baby P, who and the mother actually, who got released, it was announced this week. She would be released by the payroll board after spending many years in prison, Charlie, accused of assisting the murder of Baby P. That's not his real name, by the way. They're using some anonymous name. But it appears, Charlie, that she, the mother, has been using a dating app. Imagine fixing up an online date and then this turns up. Yet power bosses say they can't stop Baby P's mum using an app like Tinder. Where
Tinder, very popular app.
Yeah, she's been using it to look for some blokes. Or should we call it sugar daddies in that sense, Charlie? I don't want to go into too much specifics. And the Observer's front page goes for the Tory field fear poll disaster over high taxes. People are ringing me. I'm going to ignore that for now. As well, Charlie, the Tories are worried about their polling, Charlie, and not surprisingly because of the cost of living, high taxes as well. It's also just 1 month now, Charlie, until the local elections, where there'll be elections in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Charlie. That's going to be one area to watch out for.
Yeah, Northern Ireland, big one over there.
Big one over there, Charlie. That's going to be one certainly to watch out for. But the main elections, Charlie, are going to be in the London area, Charlie. No doubt about it.
Is that the mayor of London or just normal London?
No,
election?
it'll be the council elections in London, Charlie.
Yeah.
As well, most seats will be up for grab mainly in the London areas. But there's also seats up for grab in Labour control, Barking, as well as some areas to watch as well. Havering, which is no rule control. Interesting enough. Kensington is another one out to watch out for, I think, as well, Charlie. Wandsworth and Westminster is another one as well that is up for control. Richmond, as well. Sutton is interesting as well. Bromley is some very interesting ones as well, Charlie. As well. And there's also elections held in Birmingham, Bury. Watch out for that one, Charlie. That's part of the Red Wall. As well. Bolton is an interesting one. It's a Conservative minority there. A good opportunity for Conservatives to take control there. Kirklees as well. Watch out for that. Dudley, interesting as well. Sheffield, as well. Stockport. Wirral is going to be another one, interesting one as well, Charlie. Another one I think to watch out for, Charlie, as well. Leeds, Gateshead, is okay, maybe not. Elections as well in Newcastle, keep an eye on that. So, as well, Hastings, another one to watch out for. Fareham as well, and Cheltenham, Oxford as well. There's a few elections in Basildon. 14 seats are up for that as well. Burnley, watch out for that. The Labour and Lib Dem control at the moment. Colchester as well, Charlie, where Keir Starmer was this morning. Crawley as well. Worthing, Charlie. No overall control at the moment. Keep an eye out for the south. The Labour Conservatives have been losing their grip there for some time. And it's very likely at this stage, from what I'm hearing, Charlie, that Labour could have a good opportunity there to take over control of that council and overturn the Conservative minority. Tunbridge Wells, another one to keep an eye out for as well. And there's also elections for the Northern Ireland Assembly, Charlie, as well, Charlie. Watch out for that. The poll suggests at the moment that Sinn Féin are the favourites for that position to get to take the majority of the seats. But because it's a two-party system, Charlie, they will need another party with them in power, and potentially it could be the DUP as the deputies rather than the leaders this time, Charlie. Watch out. That's going to be a fierce battle, Charlie, in Northern Ireland over the next month. I suggest you keep an eye out that one because there could be a change in government potentially if the unionists do not get their act together. Charlie, I'll watch that one if I was you. Very interesting.
That would be what is called a coalition, where two parties form a government. That would be called a coalition in that view. But yes, also as well, Russians use children as human shields near Kiev. That was called into a report from the Observer there. I have to say to that one, Russia are being accusing of war crimes, let alone killing children, I think is completely ridiculous. That's false claims from Russia, in my view. On that one, now it's time for the Great British Star and Red Devil. Now, Great British Star and Red Devil nominations for myself. I've got my two Great British Stars this week. I'm going to nominate Sheridan Speed for speaking out after she got her driving licence banned for running over Insulate Britain protesters last year. I have to say, I know some people say that she's trying to run over people, but these Insulate Britain protesters are complete knobheads and should not be sitting on major highways across England, let alone blocking a woman driving a Range Rover, suggesting she wants to get her son to school and she needs to get to work. That was pathetic last year. And also another nomination, surprising nomination, I'm going to give it to the Florida Governor, Ron DeSantis, for imposing the Don't Say Gay bill, which allows schools and kindergartens for 3 years old to be banned learning sexual orientation and gender neutrality as well. That was the latest bill that got signed into martial law in Florida. The Red Devils of the week for me, Disney have gone more woke than ever in terms of running state control in America. Also, another Red Devil as well. And this one, again, I have to say, Will Smith gets my Red Devil for the Oscars punch on Chris Rock. What was he doing that for? I know Chris Rock's joke kind of made contradictions to everything. And I'm going to give a third Red Devil this week to Vladimir Putin for saying countries should pay for Russian gas in rubles, not euros. It's clear to me that Russia could shut down all of our gas supplies across Europe. Zach, what do you make to my nominations for the Great British Star and Red Devil?
Interesting one, the Disney one, yeah, and the Ron DeSantis. I mean, it shows you a bit of conservative hypocrisy when they say they're capitalists and they're free market conservatives, and yet they tell and they lecture Disney about what they can say and what they can't say. Business choices seems to be out the window if you're conservative these days because I don't know why. It's interesting enough. Right. My British Star this week, Charlie, goes to everyone who performed at the concert for Ukraine, Charlie. There was a concert on, I think it was Tuesday, Charlie, on ITV this week. And there were several performers there. Ed Sheeran, one of them. Many performers, actually, as well. Camila Cabello was another one as well there, Charlie, as well. So yeah, it was a good show, Charlie. It raised a lot of money, and it all went to charity as well. Charlie, Emily Sandé was there as well, and there was Jamila as well performing something called 1944 as well, Charlie. So I will give it to concert for Ukraine for everyone performing there.
Actually, yeah, definitely applaud these guys.
Yeah, for making so
what a great
money,
job they've done to raise money for the Ukraine crisis.
As well. And my Red Devil of the week, Charlie, well, I'm going to agree with you on this one. Will Smith, definitely the Red Devil of the week. For those who wonder what happened, Chris Rock made a joke about his wife's hair. She has a hair condition, by the way, which means so it will fall off dramatically or sometimes won't come back. Obviously, you got to feel sympathy for her in some ways. But the sympathy, whilst the joke was pretty tasteless and probably inappropriate, I'm afraid, Charlie, insulting someone and hitting is never the answer, Charlie, to that sort of thing. Will Smith now resigned from the Oscar Academy, although there will still be disciplinary action being taken by him. There was reports that he could have been arrested, but they eventually decided not to do that to Will Smith as well. I have to say, Charlie, there's been a lot of memes going around about this, and I have to say it's been incredible amount of memes. This has been so much talked about by this, what's happened with Will Smith and everything like that. But he is the Red Devil of the Week, Charlie. I mean, come on, you can't be a luxurious celebrity and just get away with punching someone over a crude joke, Charlie. I mean, come on. It made the joke was probably cruel and probably inappropriate, and the way you could have done with it, you dealt with this, Charlie, is not by hitting someone. You could have had it out online if you really wanted to, or have a private chat behind the scenes. But hitting someone was not the way to do it, Charlie. No doubt about it.
No, I have to agree, Zach. That's 100% unacceptable what Will Smith done. I defend every right of what was said that night, not to Will Smith, but to everyone else who said that, even Liam Payne, for One Direction bandmate, saying that this is just unacceptable. Should be done.
Yeah, it is.
And tolerated. So, yeah, it shocked everyone in Hollywood, and it shocked me 100% when this went out early in the morning coverage in Hollywood. So, yeah. But that's it for the Charlie Tolhurst show this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back again next week for more news content, and also to have a look at lots of other great topics as well. Stay tuned, guys. Plenty more coming next week. Take care, everyone.